Hello everyone and welcome back to Sports Today. So we know that today is there's not a lot of T20 World Cup action. There's in fact only one match that is set to take place today, but of course it's a very important match if you are a fan of the Australian team. Why? Because after Australia ended up losing their first match against New Zealand by a massive margin, their net run rate has taken an absolute hammering, which means that not only do they actually have to win pretty much all of their remaining matches, but they have to do so in a convincing manner to actually correct that net run rate, because net run rate could very well be a factor in deciding who makes it out of their group. Because you remember, that particular group has a lot of big wigs. You have Australia, you have New Zealand, you have England, and of course you have Sri Lanka, who are the team that Australia are taking on today. Now, of course, the big breaking news update is that the toss has taken place, and that, of course, Australia have chosen to bowl first, having won the coin flip. Now, if you're looking at team changes, both of these teams have made a change each, and truth be told, neither of them is that surprising. So for Sri Lanka, Pathum Nissanka is back in the 11. So he slots in the opening side in the opening slots alongside Kusal Mendes. Then the rest of the team reads exactly the same. You have Dhananjay De Silva, Charat Asalanka, Bhanaka Rajapaksa, Dasan Shanaka, Wanindu Hasranga, Chamika Karunaratne, Thikshana, Binra Fernando, and Lahiru Kamra. For Australia, however, the big news for them was that unfortunately Adam Zampa, you'd remember, had tested positive for COVID-19 about a little while back. So there was always going to be doubts as to whether or not he'd be available. You'd remember the COVID protocol is that if a player has mild or is asymptomatic in terms of the severity of his symptoms, then he could be allowed to play. However, Zampa actually misses out in this particular game. So there's no other change for Australia, but they've brought in Ashton Agar to replace Adam Zampa. And again, that was kind of expected if it was in fact, going to be the case that Zampa, his symptoms would actually prevent him from being a part of this game. Obviously, he would be feeling well. Hope he gets better soon if you're an Australian fan, because he's been a key bowler for them in this particular format. But Agar too is someone who can do a decent job. So again, how much of a miss that will be, I don't think it'll be that much of a miss. Now, if you're looking at how this match stacks up in terms of the group scenarios for both of these tables, obviously, as I said, obviously, Australia, it's a massive match for them, because their current net run rate is minus 4.450. That is a terrible net run rate no matter which way you try to spin it. And all of that is down to the fact that they ended up getting absolutely hammered by New Zealand in their opening game. Even if they lost by a close margin, would have probably been fine, but it wasn't a close margin win. And as things stand, Australia are actually dead last in Group 1. Sri Lanka, on the other hand, they won their first match, and that means that they are actually currently second in the group, and they have a very good net run rate of 2.467. So obviously, if Sri Lanka can get even a close win here, then suddenly they will really fancy their chances of potentially making it to the next round, because again, Australia are one of the bigger teams in this group. The other two, of course, you'd say England and New Zealand. So if Sri Lanka can get a win against these teams, it would be massive. For Australia, on the other hand, I think they would fancy their chances, despite the fact that Sri Lanka, as we know, they're a decent side. They play very well as a team, and of course, they are the Asian champions. You cannot take them lightly. The fact is that before this tournament, they have won a multi-nation tournament, so they do know how it is to perform in such tournaments. So for Australia, though, as I said, must-win match for them, because and they have to actually try and win it by a massive margin, because that's the only way they're going to be able to correct their net run rate. Now, Subhadeep Pan has an interesting question. He says that, do you think Australia is missing a frontline fifth bowler, as Stoinis doesn't really fill that gap, and Marsh is not bowling much? That's an interesting question, because normally I feel like they're not using one of their bowling options. I don't think they need a fifth frontline bowler in that regard. I think they do have a number of all-rounders. So I think I'm very surprised that they haven't turned to Maxwell. They didn't turn to him in the last game, and although he's been bowling pretty regularly for them, sometimes even in the power plays, I think he could be a good option. Even that Tim David can roll his arm over, whether they give him the ball, they have options. So even, I agree with you in the sense that Stoinis can be a bit hit and miss. Marsh isn't bowling, but I think Australia do have options, and I think maybe it's time for Aaron Finch, to actually kind of try and use those options, because again, Sri Lanka would be a tricky team to play against. Again, as I say, they don't have a lot of big star names, but they know how to play as a team, and they know how to win big tournaments. So in that sense, I'm expecting a very good match. Do stay tuned with us all at Sports Today. We'll be bringing you the updates from the match as and when it happens, and hopefully we're in for a good match, because this is the only World Cup match that we have to look forward to today for the T20 World Cup. Thank you all so much for joining us. Again, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tap the bell icon, and of course follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as well. And don't forget to download the SportsTech app, where you'll get ball by ball updates of the T20 World Cup matches as and when it happens. Thank you for joining us. Bye bye for now.